And I can confirm that the more than 8 million taxpayer dollars that have gone to essentially subsidizing subscriptions to Politico on the American taxpayers' dime will no longer be happening. The Doge team is working on canceling those payments now.
Oh, Carolyn Levitt hits again. Welcome to another edition of Spark the Conversation. This is your host, Mark the Spark. Let's do it again. So, as you can see, Carolyn Levitt strikes again. We're discovering more and more some of these things that are being funded out of the USAID hidden payment program. Seems like it was a slush fund for the left. Big shock, right? Because every institution they touch, they take over and steal all the money from it to fund their campaigns and people who support them, giving out freebies, handouts, and briberies for people to continue to vote for them, which is the only reason that anybody really seems to vote for them. Either that or they have been convinced that it is the good way to, virtue signal to everybody that they're a good person. So you saw a little bit of the clip from Carolyn Levitt in her press conference, and it's so funny that they're willing to call out Politico right in the room with them. This is so great to just see them get bashed to their face and that get called out for the truth of stealing from the American public. And this is what happens when you have uncontrolled taxation and uncontrolled control of these bureaucracies and NGOs that are funded by our taxpayer dollars. When one party has all control and nobody's able to look in and see what's going on in there, why do you think these Democrats on the left are so up in arms about the fact that this has been canceled and it's getting looked into and that Elon Musk is getting in there? They're not worried about an oligarchy. They're not worried about they're talking about totalitarianism or authoritarianism. They're not worried about that because that's their playbook. They just want you to be worried about it. They want you to be afraid that Elon Musk, who, like I said, until 2 seconds ago was on their side of the aisle, funding the Democratic Party and supporting them in their agenda. Until 2 seconds ago, he was on their side. But then he woke up. He saw the light. Or as he says, they left him. He said, you went too far. Yeah. And now he's swung so far back and he's bringing people like Zuckerberg with him. He'll be the next one they go after at any chance they get. So this isn't really what they're afraid of. They're trying to make you afraid of a ghost, something that doesn't exist. They're trying to call, this is so funny because there was actually a Babylon Bee article that says something like authoritarian government finds or reduces the size of government or something like that. I mean, because it's just, when you think about it, the fact that that's what Doge is tasked to do, reduce the size of government, and they're calling him out as trying to create more powerful government. It doesn't make any sense. And then they go and say, oh, they're going to get rid of Department of Education. They're going to get rid of the IRS. They're going to get rid of these government agencies. How does that create authoritarianism? Getting rid of bureaucracy is actually bringing in more democracy, which is what they claim to defend. Although we all know that that's completely not true. But here's the rest of that clip from the press conference.
So upon coming out here to the briefing room, I was made aware of the funding from USAID to media outlets, including Politico, who I know has a seat in this room. And I can confirm that the more than 8 million taxpayer dollars that have gone to essentially subsidizing subscriptions to Politico on the American taxpayers' dime will no longer be happening. The Doge team is working on canceling those payments now. Again, this is a whole of government effort to ensure that We are going line by line when it comes to the federal government's books. And this president and his team are making decisions across the board on, do these receipts serve the interests of the American people? Is this a good use of the American taxpayers' money? If it is not, that funding will no longer be sent abroad, and American taxpayers will see significant savings because of that effort.
So, yeah, she's talking about reducing the size of government. This is what we need to do. And this is what the people want. I found a couple articles actually that apply in the Babylon Bee. I think this is the one I was referring to. Trump becomes first fascist in history to reduce the size of government. I mean, absolutely crushing. But then there's this other one that says, Democrats warn Trump's unelected shadow government is dismantling their unelected shadow government. And that's so telling of the left, right? That the left always is warning about, like, all you have to do is listen to what they're saying the other side's doing, and you know that that's what they're doing. They tell on themselves. It's absolutely pretty funny. And then Babylon Bee announces $36,000 per month pro subscription for USAID funded government agencies. So basically saying, oh, we want what Politico is getting. Give us that same deal too. Pretty hilarious by the Babylon Bee, and that's why we love them. So here's some more, another clip of Hakeem Jeffries melting down over reducing the size of government, which obviously is reducing his friends and family plan.
Nothing as it relates to lowering the high cost of living. At the same time, they are raiding the government, attempting to steal taxpayer money. That's what the situation at the Treasury Department is all about. We will introduce the Stop the Steal Act in short order to prevent unlawful access with respect to the Department of Treasury's payment system connected to people who are trying to steal personal, sensitive, and confidential information.
So the fear-mongering continues from Hakeem. He's trying to convince you that Doge is completely unauthorized, that they're outside their bounds, that they shouldn't have access like they do to the Treasury Department systems. All these things that is not actually accurate. And that we've already seen a couple different avenues of which he's operating legitimately. The one avenue is under the State Department. Marco Rubio has already said that he does have the authorization to do all of this, this evaluation and checking of where the money's going from the government. Seems valid. I mean, he is a official that's been approved by the Senate, and he's a cabinet member. There's no doubt that he has the ability to do this and then authorize people within. I mean, every cabinet official has a staff underneath them, and he's saying that this is his staff. This next clip is also describing how this is Donald Trump giving his executive authority to Doge and Elon Musk to be able to check into these deep dives into the expenditures of the government as well. So, and he's in touch with him and not just letting Elon Musk do whatever he wants. Elon Musk has been very clear that he respects the authority of the president and has been checking in with him regularly. Even when they were talking about shutting down the USAID completely, Elon Musk says, really? You really want me to shut it all the way down? Just completely, basically uproot it and shut it down? And Trump's like, yeah, we've gotta. It's infiltrated. And Elon Musk comes and, gives the Apple reference where he says the apples not just have one or two worms. It doesn't just have one or two worms, couple worms. He says the whole thing is worms. And you can't save an apple when there's no apple left. It's just worms. And it's valid. And now that we're finding out this is funding Politico and who knows what else, this is, first of all, not surprising. Really, it's not surprising. It's surprising that it's been so easy to find, I guess. But we all thought these things were going on with our money anyways. And who's upset about this? Who's upset about actually finding out where our tax dollars are going and toning it down and controlling it better? If you're upset about that, then I think you're really, really confused about where your money's going. So here's a trip of President Trump talking about Doge and its work.
Thank you, sir. On Elon Musk, how often are you talking to him? And have there been ideas that he's brought to you that you've said, oh, no, wait a minute, this is going a little too far?
Well, many ideas, but look, he's done a great job. Look at all the fraud that he's found in this USAID. It's a disaster what the people, radical left lunatics, they have things that nobody would have even believed. The whole thing with $100 million spent on you know what, with money going to all sorts of groups that shouldn't deserve to get any money. With the money, I'd like to see what the kickbacks are. How much money has been kicked back? Who would spend that kind of money to some of the things that you read about and I read about and I see every night on the news and every morning when I read the papers? Who would spend money for that? I would say this, the people that got all that money, are they kicking it back to the people that gave it from government? No, that's, to me, very, very corrupt. The real question is how much of a kickback?
For so long that we've got this mental state that like, well, none of this stuff will ever be proven. We're just these crazy lunatics. Almost like you're told it enough times that it's got to be true, right? And then you find out that it's true and you're just like, what dimension am I in? Like, what's happening? You know, my head's spinning. Like every day I hear this stuff and I'm like, I feel like I should be surprised and upset about this kind of stuff, but I'm not. I don't know. I'm in this confused state. I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but it's mind blowing. Anyway, so now they're turning it into, now they're not just upset. That's not enough. Now they've got a call for almost insurrectionist type stuff, like violence. I mean, calling to people in the streets, calling to people stand up and fight. I thought when President Trump used those words on January 6, 2021, that those kind of words were dangerous and violent and calls to violence. Seems kind of like it. Here's Hakeem Jeffries calling for action in the street.
We are going to fight it legislatively. We are going to fight it in the courts. And we're going to fight it in the streets.
And here's an example of those people marching in the streets that Hakeem was looking for.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. You want to volunteer or something? Help out. Dismissiveness, divisiveness, red MAGA hats, and a sea of red that just want to be. That's hopefully
And notice how these people always have to cover their face. I mean, these people are not covering their face because it's cold. These people are covering their face because they know that they should be embarrassed for what they stand for. They know what they're marching for is wrong. If you didn't know what you were marching for was wrong, why would you cover your face? Even the people in January 6th protesters. Those people who were there at the Capitol building because they did not plan on committing any criminal acts, and most of them didn't. They didn't wear masks. That's why they were caught so easily when they were targeted by Joe Biden's attorney general. So, they're the party of tolerance and understanding and peace, but yet they're the ones who want the violence. They're trying to incite their people to get them riled up, to get them to show up, because fear is their number one driver. I don't know. Well, there you have it. So calling to action in the streets. Now we got Senator Ed Markey, who's, part of this massive protest they've got outside the Capitol building. And there's tons of people out here with all kinds of crazy signs, like, we the people, strength in diversity or something like that, and something about the price of eggs and all this other craziness. But he's calling for bringing thousands and tens of thousands and millions of people to come outside and protest. And it sounds, again, pretty insurrection-y. I don't know. This is the stuff they accused Donald Trump of doing on January 6, 2021. And now they're doing the same thing. Here we go.
This is the time when we have to stand up and to fight, to not stand on the sidelines, to have people by the millions are going to have to stand up and protest. When we come back here the next time, there should be hundreds of thousands and millions of people descending on Washington, D.C.
So yeah, hundreds and thousands and millions, or maybe hundreds of thousands of millions, or whatever he's talking about. I don't know. He just wants like everybody in the country out protesting because like they care that Doge is cutting costs in the federal government, which guess what? Equals either a lowering of tax rates of your federal taxes, or get this, less payments of interest, because we'll have more leftover money to pay off our debt, which means the Fed has to print less money, which decreases inflation, which guess what does, you know what that does? It lowers your prices. And I'm not patronizing you guys. I think you guys all understand it. I'm obviously talking to people like Ed Markey, people like Hakeem Jeffries, people like Chuck Schumer, people like AOC, Ilhan Omar, all these people who are upset about reducing the cost of the federal government. That's who I'm talking to. That's who I'm patronizing, because clearly they don't understand basic economics. Basic economics. I'm reading right now Thomas Sowell's book, Basic Economics. Is 990 pages long, which is excellent. But he's going through a lot of different things. He always gives such great examples and references in his books. He really does a good job of sourcing all his items very clearly. And, I'm no economist, really. But, I mean, most of the stuff I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. It's just common sense. Maybe that's me. Maybe the Democrats don't have common sense. Maybe that's the problem, which I think we'd all agree with. Pretty simple to see. In other news, Donald Trump signed an executive order today banning, again, this is crazy, banning men from being in women's sports. This was the point of creating women's sports in the first place, right? Do I not understand something there? I'm confused. So the fact that you have to write this on paper is just like makes your eyes go crossed, I guess. So he's got a bunch of girls and females, older and younger, all around him to sign this executive order, and it's kind of a photo op. But you know what? He didn't sniff any of the kids' hair. I'm just gonna come right out and say that he didn't sniff any of their hair. None of them looked uncomfortable. None of them like looking for a parent, like come and save me, like they did with Creepy Joe. It just looked natural, and it is natural because you see him when you see him with his kids, his grandkids. He's just natural. Obviously that's who he is. We are the natural party. We're not unnatural because it's not forced. Like Kamala Harris's cackle laugh, that was so forced. Anyways, he's finally standing up for what everybody should have stood up for. Science, the party of science should have stood for this, you would think. But he's just stating the obvious. Boys shouldn't be in girls' sports. That's what they have boys' sports for. Here we go. That's something we should all support pretty readily.
Action this afternoon, we're putting every school receiving taxpayer dollars on notice that if you let men take over women's sports teams or invade your locker rooms, you will be investigated for violations of Title IX and risk your federal funding. There will be no federal funding. So this will effectively end the attack on female athletes at public K-12 schools and virtually all U.S. colleges and universities. I don't think we've missed anything, but if we do, we'll make it up very quickly with an order.
So there you go. Nobody uncomfortable in the background. You see mothers and children, adult females, young females, all invested in one thing: fairness, common sense, and fairness. That's the point of all this Title IX stuff to begin with. And thank goodness he's going to stand up for that. And thank God, I should say, because we believe in that. Thank God that he's willing to stand up and protect these women in women's sports. I mean, it's just so obvious, like girls' sports, not for boys. Duh. And here's another clip of him signing the executive order. It's so funny because Joe Biden, when he was signing all these executive orders in the past 4 years, he did it in the silence of the night. He did it in hiding, like most of his stuff did in hiding, because they knew that they couldn't let the truth out, that the guy was incapable and incompetent of doing the job. But Donald Trump does it right out in the open. He lets the press in. He turns everything into a press conference because he wants transparency. Sunlight is the best option for transparency, right? It's the best disinfectant. Isn't that what we say? Sunlight is the best disinfectant. There's nobody more transparent than Donald Trump. He does everything in the open. And even his negotiating, he does in the open. Now, you may misinterpret what he's saying. You may not understand it because he's playing 3D chess and you don't even understand checkers. But everything has a purpose. Everything has a plan. Everything is coordinated and detailed. There's not much that Donald Trump does that's an accident. That's from off the cuff. It seems like it because that's the part that he plays and he does it so well. But it's all part of a negotiation. And that's why he's successful at it. Here's him signing that executive order, protecting girls' sports, keeping it girls' sports like it always should have been.
You ready? What a nice picture this is, huh, Governor? You ready? We'll do a good job. Wait, let me press that. I want to make this a really good signature because this is a big one, right? Oh, I think we have a 10. We have a 10.
God bless you, Mr. President.
Pretty good, huh? I see that. Okay? Good. Now you're going to go out and win those events, right? Nice to see you all. Great going, everybody. Nice to see you. Thank you, kids. Here, take a pen. I'll give some of these out, okay? Take a pen.
And so it all seems natural because it is natural. And the girls are just like curious little kids. They're allowed to act like kids. They don't have to hire, paid actresses and paid children to come in like Kamala Harris did with the NASA questions. It was just silly. They don't have to get influencers in there. They get just real kids who you can see that are curious. They're, right up against him. He's not bothered by it. And he's not creepy. He's not creepy about it. Could you imagine if that was Kamala Harris with the cackle doing that? Oh, it would hurt. If it was Tim Walz even in there, those people are not genuine. They're not transparent. And then Donald Trump says, we're going to make this a good one. He jokes with the kids, just simple banter, and then gives them pens. He gives pens out. This is so funny. He's giving out pens after every executive order. Like the one he says, give this to RFK, give this to so-and-so. He's throwing them out in the crowd at his rally right after his inauguration. That's pretty classic that he's doing that. So a great move by the Trump administration to protect girls' sports. I mean, this is feminism 101, right? Fairness for women, for females, trying to protect them from injury. in just having fun or, friendly competition, trying to get scholarships to pay for their college, for their education, trying to set records that aren't going to be broken now or in the future by men pretending to be women. Seems like a simple protection. Seems like a simple decision. Science, right? Isn't that what we believe in? Science? Anyways, just a quick note on DEI, where there was a couple of planes that ended up coming together. A Japan Airlines plane struck the tail of a parked Delta Airlines plane at the Seattle airport. And, this kind of stuff happens, but it just seems like it's happening a little bit too much. And somebody's got to be answering to this. I mean, there's supposed to be ground personnel helping guide these planes. I don't know if you really blame the pilot on this. I mean, I guess this is pretty blatant. But you just can't have this kind of stuff happening, especially with this kind of regularity. Here's a clip of the after effect of those two planes coming in contact, just barely leaving the hangar or the loading port. So in this last news story, we've got a big news that came out yesterday in the evening. We really didn't have too many details on it, but now the clips are coming out and we're starting to hear more and more about it. And the story that Donald Trump says the United States is going to take over Gaza. So, in partnership with Israel, Donald Trump has now come out and said that basically nobody else wants this territory. Nobody else seems to be able to handle it. Every time it gets handled by some other country, terrorism takes a hold and takes over the area, and it ends up being a complete wasteland. And now that it's been involved in this war that they started and subjected their own people to, it's been decimated. They're living in rubble. They're living in nothingness and squalor. And so Trump says, you know what we're going to do? We're going to come in there and we're going to clean the place up. But in the meantime, we're going to build other places for the Palestinians to go. And they can go in these places and they're going to be beautiful places and they'll be treated well and they'll be under the control of other government agencies, other countries. And this will prevent a terrorist group from coming in and taking control of the region again and endangering all the surrounding countries. And so Netanyahu obviously knows that there's been a change in the culture, especially in relation to Israel. And he had this to say about Donald Trump, which I think you'll be hearing this clip quite a bit from now on.
I'll say it again. You are the greatest friend Israel has ever had in the White House.
And so Donald Trump seems pretty pleased by that statement. And of course, who wouldn't be pleased by that kind of statement? So, all these reports coming out and saying that, the leftists, they'll try to take advantage of anything they can. But they're trying to say, oh, Donald Trump was owned by Netanyahu. He's catering to Netanyahu. It's like, no, he's not. Donald Trump is the only one who's been able to manage to create a peace deal in the Middle East, a lasting peace deal. And he was this close, very, very close to solidifying a deal, bringing in Saudi Arabia as well. He was so close. He just ran out of time. He's not wasting time this time. We've seen that. And so, a couple weeks into his presidency, he's got Netanyahu in there setting up a new plan. And he's going to try something different. Donald Trump's going to talk about this. He is the outside the box president that we wanted. This is what he's been hired to do, to come in and say, we're not going to keep trying the same things that have been tried over and over again. The two-state solution, the, separate governments and all this craziness that we've tried before. He says, we're going to do something outside the box. I got an idea. You guys can't do it. We'll do it. But we're not taking the people. We just want the land. So we're going to push all these people outside and spread them out and they'll have to integrate into the other societies. And, you know, Egypt and Jordan, they're kind of like bucking the plan a little bit. But I think ultimately it's in their best interest to cooperate. I mean, not only does Donald Trump, has he shown the ability to get what he wants in one way or another anyways, but it's in their best interest to not have a hostile neighbor right next to them all the time. I mean, that seems simple enough. I mean, they're still going to have to deal with Lebanon and Iran, but we'll get to those too. Donald Trump ain't finished. He's not letting Iran have a nuclear weapon. He's made that clear. So he's going to keep putting pressure in those spots, but we got to start here first. So, you know, you're going to hear the complaints from the left no matter what. He could build them a Taj Mahal to live in. He could build a Mar-a-Lago and put all the Palestinians there, and the left would still complain for one reason or another. But here's Donald Trump explaining what his plan is for the region.
We'll take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area. Do a real job, do something different. Just can't go back. If you go back, it's going to end up the same way it has for 100 years.
And so you can see that he understands that if you do the same thing again, you're going to have the same result. I mean, we understand that. Einstein understood that, right? Insanity, definition of insanity. Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. That's the Democratic Party. That's actually the deep state. That's politics. The history of politics in general has been repeat the same thing over and over again, expecting different result. We bounce it back to one group. They want to do the same thing that they tried 5 years ago. We bounce the other group. They want to try the same thing they tried 8 years ago, you know, expecting a different result. He says, no, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to do something different. I got a plan. We're going to try it my way. We're going to do it my way. And it's going to work. You watch. It'll be better than it's ever been. Bigger, better, stronger. The strongest ever. You know, Trump with his big words. But, I mean, he backs it up in the end. You follow through with his plan. He backs it up. So he's trying something different. And here's Netanyahu talking about, you know, the support that Donald Trump's given him in the past and his appreciation for what America has done.
In your first term, you recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital. You moved the American embassy there. You recognized Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights. You withdrew from the disastrous Iran nuclear deal. I remember we spoke about it. You said, this is the worst deal I've ever seen. I'm elected. I'm walking out of it. That's exactly what you did. And I think it speaks loudly for just common sense, just looking at things and seeing them as they are. And, of course, you also brokered the groundbreaking Abraham Accords in which Israel made peace with 4 Arab states. We did this in 4 months. Nothing happened for a quarter of a century, but in 4 months, we were able, working together under your leadership, to have 4 historic peace accords.
And so he speaks to Donald Trump's ability to negotiate. He speaks to Donald Trump's support, which, you know, really is a good example of this support from the whole American people. A majority of the American people do support Israel. I mean, ultimately, why Ukraine got the majority of the support was only because the media made it seem much worse than what the Hamas did to the Israelis. But I guarantee you, if Ukraine would have rolled over and Putin would have taken them over, he would have treated them way better than Hamas did. I mean, those people are savages. Not that I'm saying that we should just let Russia steamroll through Europe. I'm just making an example that the treatment is completely different. The Hamas came in and just completely and utterly savagely destroyed the communities that they broke into in Israel. And maybe you could say Israel should have been prepared, but I think they thought they were. They didn't understand that this was coming for them. But it doesn't matter. The evil still came. And the evil ones are the ones accountable for the destruction, not the ones that you say that should have been prepared for it. But it's clear that Netanyahu understands that the importance of the support of the United States, and he's appreciative of it, and he's, I'm sure, so glad that there's somebody competent in that position and in their support of Israel, our ally, never mind you, our strongest ally, maybe our only ally in the region, which is going to be important when we go after Iran, which is bound to happen within, who knows, but I would say the next year or so. So the next clip is Netanyahu talking about he's got goals that need to happen in the Gaza Strip, and he just is clearly laying them out for us to hear.
We have to finish the job. In Gaza, Israel has 3 goals: destroy Hamas's military and governing capabilities, secure the release of all of our hostages, and ensure that Gaza never again poses a threat to Israel.
So this next clip comes from Peter Doocy, actually, asked a question in one of the rooms of the White House that you regularly see Trump meet with diplomats from other countries, where they sit in front of the fireplace and kind of side by side in their chairs, and the media comes in and asks questions. So Peter Doocy asked about whether the Palestinians would be allowed to come back into the Gaza Strip. And Trump says, well, why would they want to be there? The place is destroyed. We're going to build them a nicer, better place somewhere else. Somewhere else where they'll be able to, assimilate into a culture that's not violence, that's not terrorism based, that's not, teaching the hatred of Israel or any other state, especially Western states. So he's like, why would they want to? I think he's sidestepping the question, basically saying, no, they're not going to be allowed back in there. But why would you want to be? The place has been destroyed, turned to rubble. So, and the other thing is, I think that he gets them out of there. If the people who willingly leave, they'll be innocent, and the people left would be the terrorists and the terrorist supporters. So it would be easier to root those out, get rid of the tunnels, and have a fresh start in the region. So he completely basically sidesteps the question, but you hear reporters yelling in the background, what, it's their home, it's their home. It's their home only because Israel let them have it. They didn't have to do that. Israel has taken so many hits to look like the good guy, and I do not understand why they've given so much. I guess it's so that they thought that they'd have the backing of other countries when push came to shove, because they said, look how much we gave, look how much we gave. But did it work? It's peace through strength only, especially in the Middle East. Peace through strength is the only thing they understand. And so that's what's laid out in this clip.
Would Palestinians have the right to return to Gaza if they left while the rebuilding was happening?
It would be my hope that we could do something really nice, really good, where they wouldn't want to return. Why would they want to return? The place has been hell. It's been one of the meanest, toughest places on earth. And right now, I've seen every picture from every angle, better than if I were there. And nobody can live there. You can't live there.
But it's their home, sir, is what's said in the background. But, they're just trying to make bleeding hearts and all kinds of crazy, whatever. These reporters, they're going to lose their credits to the White House if they're not careful, man. We're going to get tired of hearing from them. But, we don't want to hear the whining, the bleeding hearts. Look, they attacked Israel. Israel defended themselves. Now Israel's got to get their hostages back. And Trump's point is, of course, that nobody wants to live there. Like I said, you wouldn't want to live there. It's just a way of making the know that he can't go back there sound a lot better. And this is another way that he's proved that he knows how to use tactful speech when he needs to, when it's important to. So he's basically saying, no, they're not going back. And, in this next clip, he's going to talk about, he's asked a question about Iran and the ability of Iran to make a nuclear weapon. And he comes out pretty clear and saying that's not going to happen. That can't happen. It's another part of his peace through strength mission. His goal is peace. I mean, the left would have you believe that he wants violence and war, but he did not have war in his last term. Now, some would argue in order for the U.S. to take over Gaza, they're going to need many, many thousands of troops deployed to clear this place out. I don't know. I think that he's such a good negotiator. He might be able to not only change Jordan and Egypt's mind about taking these citizens, he might be able to get them involved and take care of it themselves. And he's just brokering the deal, offering the support of the United States, which is basically, allowing it to happen. So we'll see how this evolves. Trump is a master negotiator. He's shown it already. Just a couple weeks in the White House, and he's shown his ability to negotiate quite amazing things. He showed it his last term, but man, he's grown. He really has. So it's good to see that we're coming such a long way. Here's that clip.
Doesn't mean they won't be weak, but you know what? We just don't want them to have a nuclear weapon. They can't have a nuclear weapon.
The Prime Minister, sorry, Mr. President, the Prime Minister wants you to strike Iran. That's what he wants.
You don't know what he wants. What do you know about anything? Go ahead.
But is that option is on the table?
Yes,
President
And Donald Trump crushes the reporter again, saying, you don't know what they want. What do you know? The trolling of the media is absolutely wonderful. We're all here for it, man. We're so sick of this leftist media being so blatantly biased, rubbing your face, and probably receiving funding from USAID that we're done with it, man. And we're so happy that Trump is finally calling them out and not putting up with their crap. And neither is Carolyn Levitt either, which is funny to see. Speaking of trolling reporters, there's an Afghan reporter. This is the last clip here, but this is pretty entertaining. There's an Afghan reporter. She asked them a question about recognizing Taliban in Afghanistan. And he kind of, in the nicest, I mean, this is like passive aggressive, I guess. He, in the nicest way possible, tells her, I don't understand you. If you're not going to speak clear English, basically don't ask questions in my media room because we speak English here. But he didn't say it like that. He said it in a much, much more politically correct way, I guess would be the way to say it. This is pretty much just for our entertainment.
Go ahead.
As a high expectation from you. Do you have any plan to change Afghanistan situation? Are you able to recognize Taliban? Because I'm an Afghan journalist, Afghan suffered woman. Any comment about Afghanistan? What's your future plan for Afghan people, especially Afghanistan?
I have a little hard time understanding you. Where are you from? Oh. Actually, it's a beautiful voice and a beautiful accent. The only problem is I can't understand a word you're saying. But I just say this, good luck, live in peace. Go ahead, please.
And he finishes off with good luck and live in peace. So there you go. He's kind of laying down the law, and peace through strength works with the media too, I guess, which we've actually seen in many ways. So anyways, to you, peace, good luck and peace to you. Thanks for joining the podcast today. Don't forget to comment, subscribe, follow, share with a friend. Come back tomorrow for another episode. And I appreciate you being here. Don't forget to go out and volunteer for something meaningful and spark the conversation.